Magandang araw po. Araw po ng Lunes, August 15, whatever. Nandito po tayo sa ating pangalawang ating vlog. Sana po tulungan niyo po ako na mapalago natin itong aking vlog channel, yung BIO-ALCA channel. Alam niyo po, ngayon yung araw na pagpapasuot ng face shield sa mga tao, pagpapasok sa trabaho. Alam niyo po, pabor ako dyan kailangan nyo masusunod kong vlog. Sa ngayon, ang ating tatalakayin yung papasok ng mga kabata sa October 5 yata. I think dahil paurong at ako hindi natutuwa dyan sa distance learning, no? Dahil bilang isang environmentalist, napag-aaralan ko na po yung kadelikaduhan ng ating sabihin na natin WIFI radiation o electropollution o electromagnetic, iba-iba ko tawag dyan EMF, pareho din yun. Yun ang tatalakayin natin ngayon. Siguro hindi ko ito alam ng mga think tank ng gobyerno, tinatawag nilang think tank. Siguro kulang yung kanilang tangke, no? O tumagas na yung tangke nila. Ganoon din po yung matandang sekretary ng DepEd, mukhang hindi kulang na siya sa research. Sobrang tanda na kasi. Ati yata ni Duterte yun ni Pangulo. Anyway, tatakulain mo natin ngayon yung sinasabi kong radiation. Alam niyo po ba si Steve Jobs, yung college dropout na naka-invento ng Apple, Macintosh, ano pa yung kanyang mga ginawa. Pero may katulong naman po siya din alam niyo po bang yung kanyang mga anak, kaya hindi niya pinag-aaral sa mga eskwelahan merong tinuturong computer o may computer sa eskwelahan, hindi rin niya ginagawa yun. Kaya alam niya yung panganib ng radiation pagka yung pumasok sa katawan ng bata. Okay, at siguro malakad na po ko, no? Lalo na ko itatabi ko yung ating camera. Marami nagre-reklamo, mahina daw yung boses ko. Pero, ano po. Kaya, si Steve Jobs ay namatay sa sakit na pancreatic cancer. Siguro nakuha niya rin yung sa radiation, sa radiation ng cellphone. Siya ay sumailalim sa 5 taon na natural treatment. Alam sa Amerika, ginagawa talaga yung natural treatment. Siguro sa mga dating na ituro ko yung natural treatment. Siguro nung 5 taon na, nainganyo siya. Kung sino mang gago, yung nagingganyo sa kanya, na lumipat siya modern medicine na kikemo ka. Yun, pumayag. 1 year lang, buhay niya. Kawawa naman. At bilib na bilib ako dyan kay Steve Jobs. Okay, pupunta na po tayo dun sa ating tatalakayin. Ilalapit ko yung camera at pakitatalikod sa inyo. Nakita niyo naman na itsura ko. So, siguro, pwede na tumalikod. Lalapit ko yung camera, no? Medyo siguro tatagal ng konti. So, itong aking talakayan, pero port naman ko siguro pagka ito napanood naman po. Dali lang po. Okay, nakikita niyo po yung grupo ng oil post. Alam mo, matagal na itong grupo kong itong oil post eh. Dati oil post can be seen at dito. Pero ang mga member nito, pinagtatanggal ko na din. 3 na lang kami naiwan. So, ito yung aking grupo. Ito kung una natin video ay ating bubuksan para maintindihan.
They are not approved to be held in the laps of little children, although millions of kids are having them now in schools because the people involved in educational technology and those involved in public health research are not talking to one another. Because if they were, they would understand that you're giving children a two-way microwave radiating device, and if you must give them such a device for learning purposes, put it on airplane mode so that it's not sending and receiving signals as it does otherwise. Now this is some new modeling, again, that we've developed with colleagues in Brazil, and we can share with you how we've done it. We first start out with the MRI and create the model with 1 millimeter voxels. And this is quite a bit of work goes into creating this. And here is what it looks like after a period of 6 minutes. And that's really not as bad as it might look because you see the red area only gets partway through the eye of the adult, right? The one that we're really concerned about is this one with the young child. And this is a 3-year-old brain that we modeled. And you see that by the end of that 6-minute call, the peak radiation, yellow and red, is getting all the way into almost both eyes. And again, this is one call, and it's not going to kill anybody. It may not cause any biological effect whatsoever for 1 call, or 2 calls, or 3 calls. But the question is, what's the cumulative impact of this kind of exposure? How do we evaluate it? And I want to show you an example of some of the work that we are doing now that I'm releasing here for the first time. And this is a modeled microwave radiation dose of a 6-year-old with greater levels to the frontal and temporal lobes, eyes and cheek. And watch this here. Now, yellow, white, and red are the hottest, all right? And if you look carefully, you will see it's going into the eye, the nose. Do it again, just so you get to see it. And partly into the brainstem. Now, that's just showing you that there's going to be some exposure into that area of a young head. It doesn't tell you that there's any biological effect, right? Now, the next slide is going to show you something that might be of interest to students and faculty here. And that has to do with exposure to the reproductive organs. We call them the gonads, I think you say the testicles, and bone marrow. And look here at the radiation as it gets into the groin area. And that's just from having a mobile phone modeled into the pocket. And this, again, is based on normalized SAR with a dipole antenna. Now, the breast. The breast is mostly fat, contains a lot of fluid. Things that contain flattened fluid cook faster in the microwave oven. Now, a cell phone can't cook anything, right? Mobile phones do not pop popcorn. That was a fraud. They don't make any heat that we know of, otherwise they wouldn't be permitted. But they do go through things that contain fat and fluid. And we are now working at Environmental Health Trust with scientists at the University of California, San Francisco, scientists at formerly the president of the American Cancer Society of California, because we are seeing women who keep cell phones in their bras. Has anyone seen a woman put a cell phone in her bra? Hands up, please. Please tell them you've heard now why they shouldn't do that. And here I want to show you our first case report from 2009, and we now have many more. This was a Chinese-American woman who used her cell phone 4 hours a day in her bra for 10 years while she was driving. Now, and you drive with a phone on your body. The phone is smart. It's going to go from one tower to another, and it's going to say, here I am, where are you, here I am. And it's going to be going to max power each time it moves from one cell tower to another. And there it was right next to her chest. And the tumors that developed right under the antenna of the phone. Unusual tumors. But in the meantime, people have a right to know how you can minimize exposure. And again, I think this information is available on our website, will be available on yours. Remember, if you have to give a phone to a child, put it on airplane mode. And think about this. That microwave oven, it works because there's a metal box around the microwave signal, and the signal pings all over the place. Next time you get into an elevator or a train for any length of time, put your phone on airplane mode. Otherwise, that signal is going all over the place, magnifying and coming back. Keep the mobile phone away from you when it's on and you are asleep. Now, it takes a village to do a lot of things. These are some of the people whose materials I've used today with their permission, and I can't read this list to you, but I want you to know that I feel really honored to be working with some of the most talented people in the world on this issue. And they have given me permission to share these materials with you. And I leave you with this thought from Albert Einstein. The world is not dangerous because of those who do harm, but because of those who look at it without doing anything. So, thank you.
Okay, napanood ninyo yung salita ng isang researcher na nag-research ng ating problema sa paligiran, dulot ng radiation. So, nagbabasa ako ng ilang nakalarawan dito at hopefully maintindihan nyo. Alam mo po minsan palpaking aking English Okay, dangers of radioactivity. Ito nga po yung sinasabi ko, no? Radioactive, radiation, electromagnetic field, electropollution. Iba-iba lang yung pangalan, pero pare-pareho yan. Okay. Alpha. Radiation will ionize atoms in living cells. This can damage them and cause cancer or leukemia. Alam niyo po, dito sa amin mismo, dito sa Barangay Bangkal, dalawang teenager ang namatay dito, isang 15, isang 16, parehong leukemia. Ayon sa aking balita, maghapon daw yung kung gumamit ng kanyang device, either laptop or desktop or whatever. Basta maghapon halos gumagamit ng ng computer. Beta, gamma. Outside the body and why are more dangerous as radiation is blocked by the skin. Inside the body, and a source causes the most damage because it is the most ionizing. Okay, ionize. Diba? Okay, masyado maliliit. Pero pipilitin natin basahin. Okay. Radiation effect. Potentially fatal radiation sickness. Much higher risk of cancer later in life. Ibig sabihin, kung ngayon hindi nyo pa nakukuha yung cancer, ay darating ko yun. No immediate symptoms. Increased risk of serious illness later in life. No symptoms, detectable increased risk of cancer. Para ho yung sinasabi nila, asymptomatic ngayon. Okay, eyes, ang naapektuhan, eyes, thyroid, lungs. Lungs. Teka, mahirap basahin eh. Okay, basta lungs, stomach, reproductive organs, skin, bone marrow. So siguro gawa rin natin ang note to para makikita nyo yung okay, siguro saka na. Pero sa ngayon, importante ko kasi itong malaman nyo. Okay, ito pa, mas maliliit to. Radiation exposure. Basahin na lang natin dito yung chances of death based on exposure level. So siguro, may mga level ho yung mga sakit. Pero palagay ko, ang pinakakaso talaga, leukemia. Ang pinakamalaking, iba, yung brain damage matagal makuha O yung brain cancer pala, yung brain cancer, matagal makuha yun, pero yung leukemia, madali. Okay, patayin natin, tanggalin natin to. Ito naman yung mga nagbabalita na mga fake news, kakainis. Okay. Ano ba? Wala magbuwas tayo na wala yung isang dapat natin okay. Buwasin muna natin to. Ito ang problema ko Tanggalin muna natin to. Bakit binawasan yata ako ng pictures? Si Dr. Davis pala yung nasalta. Okay. Kulang pa rin. Teka. Lilipat tayo ng ating Huwag na lang siguro. Okay, siguro sa susunod ko na lang video yun. Kasi tignan nyo, kulang ang aking pag ako nagbukas, kulang. Pero pagka yung isa, teka, buksan kaya natin yung isa. Nakita niyo yung kanina, hindi tayo mabot dito. Yun yung aking ginagamit na account, yung Jaime Reyes dito tayo lumalaban Kaya siguro nilimitahan yung aking Okay, hintayin po natin tong salita ni Ted Jeremy Johnson. Wireless wake up call. Pakinggan niyo mabuti
So I'd like to begin by asking a few questions. Who knows if they have a wireless smart meter on their home? Okay. And who has their smartphone in their pocket right now? Right. And who's read the fine print in your owner's manual that says that the smartphone should never be within about an inch of the body? So today, I'm going to speak to why we can no longer assume that our wireless technology is safe. Technology has allowed us many benefits. It's connected us to people and to places, and it's brought us convenience that few could have imagined just 10 years ago. It's also brought us tremendous economic benefits. If we can look at how technology has increased in our lives in just the last 8 years, it started with the iPhone, and then tablet computing, ubiquitous Wi-Fi, the smart meter and the smart home, and wearable tech, and now the Internet of Things. If we could imagine how this would look, it would actually look like this. This is an artist's rendition of what Wi-Fi in our public spaces looks like. We could actually hear what microwave radiation sounds like with a device like this. So if anybody would like to hear what their smartphone or their smartwatch sounds like, come and see me at the end, and I can show you. But how does this affect our bodies? That's the question I want to ask, because this exponential rise in microwave radiation can have effects. And that's what scientists and medical doctors around the world are now saying, especially when it comes to children, because they're going to be affected by this their entire lives. But today I also want to share a few solutions. I want to give everyone here things that you can do in your own lives in order to reduce this type of exposure. So I actually got into this topic about 5 years ago. Before then, I was a young technology enthusiast. I always used my smartphone and Wi-Fi. I've worked in Silicon Valley and have a master's degree in engineering. So if anyone had told me that wireless technology could have health effects, I would have thought they're crazy. So if you're thinking that right now, I can relate. But this all changed for me over the period of about 1 week. I started to experience headaches, ringing in the ears, insomnia, and a fatigue and brain fog that I'd never experienced before. And I shared this with a colleague at work, and she said, you know, the exact same thing happened to her husband when a wireless smart meter was installed in their home. So I went home that evening, and I checked downstairs, and sure enough, we had a bank of wireless smart meters installed right below our bedroom in San Francisco. So this started me on a journey to learn as much about this topic as I possibly could. I now have a website about this, and I'm contacted by people all around the world every day who are experiencing the exact same things. It can be when they have a wireless smart meter installed, or a new Wi-Fi router, or even a cell tower placed across the street from their home. These are the common symptoms that people start to experience. This is actually from a published paper on the health effects of wireless.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct.
Smart meters.
Commercial pa eh.
So, just here in the Bay Area, I'm in touch with dozens of people who've had their lives changed by this. Medical doctors, high school principals, teachers and students, IT professionals, and even entrepreneurs. These are people who had a normal life and then over a short period of time went to where they could no longer work, where they could no longer go to an office. Some of them actually have had to move out of their homes because they can't be in an environment which is normal now for most people. I've been in touch with people around the world who've become homeless because of this. There's many people that's actually happened to. And unfortunately, I know of people who've actually taken their lives because there's essentially no place they can go. And this is something that society does not yet recognize. My own life has been tremendously changed by this. After that first exposure to wireless smart meters, now I can no longer be in an environment with strong Wi-Fi for very long. So I can't go to my work the way I used to be able to. Most environments are now essentially toxic to me. So even finding a safe place to live has become very difficult. Imagine not being able to live in an apartment building where everyone has Wi-Fi, or to be able to live next to a cell tower. This is actually a proposed cell tower here in Berkeley. The residents have actually stopped it for now, but most churches and most schools now have cell towers on them. And so it exposes the people around them, and of course the students who go to those schools. This is a cell tower in San Francisco. That brown thimble on top of the telephone pole is a cell tower. And these are being placed every couple blocks. So you could have an amazing home, and then one week a company can come and put a cell tower right outside your window. So this is something that's happening throughout the Bay Area, and it's going to be happening throughout the United States. So it makes it so that people like myself have a hard time finding a place to live, but it also is ratcheting up the exposure of the entire population. So you might be asking, perhaps some people are being injured by this, but if you're not feeling it, it's probably not that big of a deal. And I think that's a very common experience. But it's not as simple as saying that just a few unfortunate people are being affected by this. Because what the science shows is that we're all affected on some level, whether we can feel it or not. And the reason is because essentially our bodies are electric. Every cell in our body communicates using tiny electric signals. It's how our nervous system operates. So to think that we could put an exponential amount of microwave radiation into our environment and not feel effects is simply false. To illustrate this, I actually had many friends come to me when I started to experience this, and they would say, "Jeremy, are you sure you aren't making this up in your head?" And I thought this too myself at the beginning. But then a year or two later, they would come to me and they'd say, "You won't believe it, but now I'm feeling pain in my arm when I use my cell phone, or when I put it to the head, or when a new Wi-Fi router is installed." So this is something where when people have more of an exposure, more people are being affected. And it's not just headaches and insomnia. It's much more serious things, such as infertility, DNA damage, and eventually cancer. This is what the research is starting to show. And you don't have to take my word for it. I encourage you to start researching this for yourselves. If you simply Google EMF research, this is a screenshot of what you'll find. The World Health Organization is the first link there, and they actually in 2011 came out and said this wireless technology is possibly carcinogenic. Now there's scientists around the world that say that it's most likely carcinogenic. The third link there is actually my own website. It's there because the last 5 years I've gathered research from around the world that shows that we now have enough evidence to at least take precaution when it comes to this technology. So isn't this regulated? And this is one of the most interesting things I've found. The Federal Communications Commission is who is supposed to be regulating wireless technology.
Your workforce is here. Or should I say, everywhere.
But if you look at the regulations, they're almost 20 years old. So that means our most advanced technology is using science that's at least 20 years old. But not only that, they're based on a concept which is nearly 50 years old, which says if microwave radiation does not heat us, then it can't possibly hurt us. But there's now hundreds of studies that show that this is false. So how is it that we have a regulatory body that's not protecting the public? Well, like many issues, like many public health issues in our country, you end up having industry influencing the regulatory body. And that's what's happening here. So you have a revolving door between the wireless lobby and the FCC Commission. So that's what's happening. Plus, the science is heavily influenced by industry funding. This is a study by Dr. Henry Lai. He looked at 326 studies based on the biological effects of cell phone radiation. He found that about half of the studies showed effects and half didn't. That's pretty normal for this type of research. But what he found that was interesting was that if you looked at who funded the studies, 70% of the independent studies showed effects, and only 32% of the industry-funded studies showed effects. So you see that there's an influence in money on this topic. Just like many other topics, tobacco is another one where essentially the industry funded science that was going to show their products were safe. So that's the bad news. And now I want to share some good news. And that is that there are solutions for this. We are going to have the industry start to create safer products, but there are ways that we can both protect ourselves and move industry forward. So one of the primary things we can do is to move towards fiber optics, because this is a way that we can make our homes safer, our businesses, and our schools. So fiber optics are safe, they're secure, and there's absolutely, they're one of the fastest things we can use. Another way we can go is to design products which are safer. So currently we have product designers and engineers working together, but we can bring in biophysicists and biologists to work together to create products that don't just emit right underneath the FCC regulations, but emit the least amount of any type of electromagnetic fields as possible. If smart meters had been designed to use either fiber optics or to emit just once or twice a day, rather than the 10,000 times they do emit, then I wouldn't be standing here today, and thousands upon thousands of people around the world would not have been injured by smart meters. So what are some things that all of us can do? This is one of the most important things, because everyone wants to know how to essentially protect themselves and their families. So the first thing is to make sure we use our cell phones wisely. I mentioned that